Hi, I'm Swapnil Pawar, your instructor for the upcoming course on applied quantitative strategies. Now, before we get into the idea of what quantitative strategies are, it's important to segregate what is a strategy from an approach. And as we'll see in the course, we're going to talk about quantitative investing as an approach rather than a specific investment strategy. Because there's a vast spectrum of quantitative strategies out there, from high frequency trading at one end to factor investing rebalanced annually at the other, and everything in between. The data used itself varies from a purely so-called technical data to fundamental data to alternate data, and nearly everything that is done under the general aegis of active investing can actually be done in quantitative approach as well. So this is not exactly two different worlds where in one we see actively managed investments and in the other we see only quantitative strategies, but alternative approaches to express the same underlying view, such as high quality stocks will outperform low quality stocks, or momentum will sustain during bull runs, and so on. So these views can be done either through an actively managed strategy or through rule based investing. That, in a nutshell, is the big difference between the two. Now, at the outset, it's important to understand that operationalizing a quantitative strategy is very different from operationalizing an actively managed strategy, even if they have the same underlying intuition. If I, for example, take the idea of return on equity as my driving philosophy for investing, an active manager using this framework will behave differently in trying to implement this in an investment portfolio versus a quantitative manager. And that's exactly the crux of the course. How do you operationalize and implement a quantitative strategy? And what is the approach for that? So we're not going to talk about which quant strategies do well and which ones won't, but more like if this is a specific mandate, which could be anything that we can use as example, how do we actually operationalize that into an implementable strategy, which can be rebalanced at whatever frequency we choose. So this course will be primarily focused on such implementation rather than just theory. We aren't talking here about what makes quant strategies tick, or why should you invest in quantitative strategy versus actively managed strategy. So this is not a marketing sort of discussion. This is about if you want to implement a quantitative strategy using some data and some approach, some intuition, how do you actually go about creating it? The challenges involved are some as basic as cleaning the data to as advanced as automated portfolio optimization, maximizing diversification, minimizing correlations, and so on. We'll come across a lot of interesting ideas here, such as right at the time of selecting a factor to normalizing it, to creating portfolio out of 50, 100, 20, whatever number of stocks you choose, and so on. And all of these are interesting things to explore. Each of them actually can take a course in themselves, but we'll take a quick overview of all of this. At the end of it, what you will learn is how do you go about building a quant strategy for a given input. So I think that's the broad idea. What I expect you to have as a background knowledge before you start this course is fairly minimal. You don't need to be an expert in financial analysis, nor do you need to be an expert coder. But what is important is to know broadly what one means by, say, ROE or return on equity. What does it mean? It's also important to know what is a three sigma uh, band. What do we mean by percentiles, for example? We'll use these recursively. Uh, Many terms we'll go through in terms of the definitions on the course itself, but we've not necessarily stopped to do an entire background for each term. So in that sense, this is an intermediate level course, not a beginner level course. So with that, let me welcome you once again to the course, and I look forward to seeing you in the first session. Thank you so much. See you soon.